Our fourth debate session, I would like to invite the adjudicators for the fourth debate session. Thank you. Welcome to the fourth debate session. I am Molita, and I will serve as your moderator. Debate motion 4. The ASEAN Charter should be revised. Participants will discuss the foundation document of the ASEAN, considering whether its principle and framework are still relevant and effective in addressing contemporary challenges and human rights issues in the region. To start, I would like to invite all participants and debaters to introduce yourself.
Testing. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jasmine Kong from Singapore, and I will be the Prime Minister speaking from the government side. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Rania Suri. I am from Indonesia and I will be representing the Deputy Prime Minister.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ia Kim Hong, and I will be serving as the government whip.
Hello everyone, my name is Angelica. I'm from the Philippines, representing UP Debate Society, and for today I'm being the leader of opposition for this fourth motion. Thank you.
Minglawa and Anheta So from Myanmar. I will be a deputy opposition leader. I look forward to the exchange of ideas. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ming Ha, and I will be the opposition whip for the opposition. Thank you.
Introduction. To begin, I would like to give the floor to Prime Minister, the first speaker of the government team, to deliver your statement.
Testing. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Honorable Chair, Your Excellencies and fellow delegates, the government firmly believes the ASEAN Charter must be revised. Not abolished, not discarded, but revised to reflect the realities of 2025, not 2008. When the Charter was established in 2008, ASEAN was just stepping onto the global stage. Yet today, we are one of the most connected, digital and youth-driven regions in the world. Yet the Charter is silent on digital rights and protections our people need. That is why our first pillar is modernization, enshrining the rights to privacy, data protection and equitable access, so ASEAN shields its citizens from scams, techniques and digital exclusion. But modernization alone is not enough. My teammates will share 2 more reasons. With the second reason being, ASEAN must strengthen its crisis management, as disasters and political unrest has shown our charter leaves us constrained at critical moments. Lastly, ASEAN must update its political framework so decisions are not just consensus-driven words, but effective and transparent commitments. These revisions do not erase ASEAN's foundations, but preserve and upgrade them to stay credible and people-centric for 2025 and beyond. Revision does not mean abandoning sovereignty or non-interference. It means to ensure evolution with the realities of our time. In 2008, it reflected ASEAN's first steps on the world stage. But today, new challenges like digital dependence, rising crises, and shifting expectations demand a framework that protects citizens in this current era. That is why our first pillar is modernization. Across ASEAN, the digital world shapes how people learn, work, and connect. Yet the Charter says nothing about data privacy, digital access, or safeguards against harmful AI like deepfakes. Thus, we do know that ASEAN has issued certain frameworks, such as in 2016 and 2018 on data governance and data protection, or in 2025 in regards to the AI roadmaps. However, these are just guidelines, volunteer guidelines, not baseline commitments. Without charter-level recognition, digital dignity depends on uneven national regulations. For example, in Singapore, there is 95% internet penetration, but in Myanmar it is barely 50%, leaving youths unprotected and exposed to marginalization and exploitation. One example is how in Myanmar there's over 1,000 scam centers that exploit traffic labor to scam people in other nations, while in Singapore there's rigorous education in avoiding scams. Therefore, a revised charter could ensure 3 simple guarantees: the right to privacy and data protection, equitable digital access, no youth, rural community, or person with disabilities are left behind, and protection from harmful AI automated systems, ensuring fairness in the age of AI. Without these revisions, ASEAN risks losing legitimacy. Because what good is sovereignty if citizens cannot be protected from data leaks? What good is prosperity if participation in the digital economy depends on where you are born, instead of being a right for all? Revising the Charter is not about abstract ideals, it is about protecting the people and giving them digital dignity and real security in their everyday lives. Thus, in 2008, ASEAN gave itself a legal identity. By 2025, it must protect its people and give itself digital dignity. And thus, on behalf of government, I am proud to affirm this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now invite the leader of the opposition, the first speaker of the opposition team, to propose your point.
Testing. Okay, some clarifications first. The whole case of government side hinges on the necessity for modernization, as they claim the Charter does not reflect the issues of today. However, the Charter, to clarify, is just a foundation for further protocols and rules established in ASEAN. And right now, ASEAN is actually doing something to answer the issues brought upon by government side today. But aside from that, one thing that I'd like to note is that feasibility is one aspect that we simply cannot ignore in this debate. As the opposition, we agree that there always needs to be constant improvement to enforcement mechanisms and aid to people on the ground having their rights violated. This is non-negotiable. This is a non-negotiable principle, insofar it's the duty of all nations to take care of the human rights of its citizens. The next logical step then, or question that we must ask, is which side in this debate will better serve the people on the ground? On the other hand, government side says that change can be better accrued to the revision of the ASEAN Charter. However, on opposition side, we think that government stance leads to inefficiency, uncertainty, and further tensions, all of which trickles down from negotiations to actually hurting the people on the ground. Therefore, alternatively then, we believe that the better way to accrue change is through the strengthening of protocols and further cooperations outside the revisions of the Charter. So therefore, I'm going to move on into my arguments then, some responses also integrated within. First argument is we're going to explore why exactly is the revision of the Charter not the strategic choice in accruing positive change. One, take note that there have been no revisions to the ASEAN Charter since its conception. That doesn't mean we can't try now. However, revising right now is simply inefficient. Due to each member state's varying interests, cultures, more likely than not, the discussion of revision in of itself will take a long time due to the consensus principle rooted in the ASEAN Charter. Now, if government is attempting to say that we should revise the very principles in which the Charter or ASEAN way is based off, then the talks, the negotiations, the research will be even longer. However, giving them the benefit of the doubt, even if the unlikely case that the revision does happen, since the Charter, the foundation of the laws and the protocols was revised, the future new protocols and projects would have to shift strategies as well, and therefore would take longer solutions. What happens then to the people on the ground, right? Well, we revise, talk, debate again and again, which is important, to a charter wherein there's no guarantee that it'll even be revised for success. The people on the ground continue to suffer. Why then are protocols, like the shifting of protocols to include the modernization point of government better, right? First thing I'm going to highlight is proof that the ASEAN way was quite effective to prove how the Charter of the status quo already has a strong formation. The ASEAN Charter brought ASEAN member states out of poverty, and the unity helps with global development. But second, in the case that there are lapses in implementation, in the issues of modernization, we improve protocols instead of revising the Charter, and this strategy is preferable because of 3 main things. 1, it's more efficient. Revising protocols is quicker and less politically complicated than revising the Charter. Number 2, it preserves unity and consensus. Revising the Charter might cause deep disagreements among member states. Well, lastly, even if protocols are less comprehensive and are not binding, they can still be flexible and adaptable and adapt to the modernization issues brought upon by government side. So with that stated, opposition co-opts the benefits of government. Thank you. To oppose.
Next, I invite the Deputy Prime Minister, the second Speaker of the government team, to present your argument.
3, 2, 1. We cannot fight tomorrow's fires with yesterday's rule. They talked about feasibility and also about protocol changes. But what change? Why isn't Myanmar fighting right now? Why are we still at a halt right now? It talked about the inefficiency that is currently going on. So why can't we change today? Because we see in the UEU and the WTO that there are revisions, that they are constantly modernizing. So why can't we? We share the opposition's goal too, a stronger, effective ASEAN. The difference though is simple. They fuel ASEAN with goodwill, but we give ASEAN the engine that they will actually need to move. Thus, I will conclude in 2 arguments. One, that reform makes tools operational, not symbolic. If a country refuses to comply, that means that there is no consequences. ASEAN does not lack institutions, it lacks operational rules. Revisions to certain chapters, such as Chapters 8, dispute settlement, can 1. Allow qualified majority voting in emergencies, 2. Activate the High Council that has never been convened, and also enable collective tools such as sanctions, embargoes, coordinated diplomacy, and add transparency mechanisms such as dashboards, audits, enforceable actions. The problem here is that this is just a foundation, but foundation without action is useless. Analogy here is, for example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the EU sanctioned Moscow within days because its charter allows binding majority decisions. ASEAN, by contrast, took months just to issue a watered-down statement on Myanmar. The 5-point consensus failed because it had no enforcement tooth. Here's the urgency. Delays cost money, not just lives. In Myanmar, political instability wiped out over $1.5 billion in FDI in 2021 alone, and trade disruptions hurt Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam, who are treaty-bound partners. ASEAN members deserve rights to ensure economic integration flows smoothly and does not interfere in terms of violations. In the South China Sea debate, unresolved disputes risk $3.4 trillion in annual global trade flows. Crises unmanaged are crises paid for by all ASEAN members. Collective enforcement is not a threat to sovereignty. It is a shield for regional stability. The Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, in this case, is what we are proposing, creating a High Council to peacefully settle disputes. But however, in the years that it has been there, it has never been convened because of the fear of responsibility and voluntary rules that left it dormant. Thus, reform makes High Council adaptive, not reforming. If revised, the High Council is no longer just a polite piece of paper, but it becomes ASEAN's regional court of first resort, before cases drag on for years at other parties. Thus, we can conclude here that revision means RAC, R-A-C, relevance, accountability, and credibility. For ASEAN to address modern crisis, members to uphold their commitments, and not just a talk shop, but a regional safeguard. That is why this House supports revising the ASEAN Charter. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite the Deputy Leader of the Opposition to defend his stance.
The government claims that ASEAN should revise its charter to become more efficient and decisive. But let's be clear, efficiency without unity is meaningless. Speed is dangerous. If it eliminates the smaller nations' power division and endemic threats, affect decisions that bring ASEAN no decision at all. That's why wisdom-fed consensus is not a weakness, it's ASEAN's strength. And this is not just rhetoric, it is the law of ASEAN itself. Article 20 of the ASEAN Charter clearly states that decision-making shall be based on consultation and consensus. Consensus ensures that every ASEAN member country, whether big or small, whether rich or poor, have an equal voice. This reflects Article 2A of Charter, which upholds sovereign equality and independence. It protects smaller nations from being overruled and dominated by largest ones. Most importantly, consensus builds trust, unity, shared ownership. As Article 1 of ASEAN Charter makes clear, ASEAN power is to maintain centrality and unity in our region. Unlike majority voting, which risks majority tyranny, consensus granted ASEAN remain as family or equal. Yes, consensus may be slow, but unity and trust can't be rushed. One decision are made together. Member states feel ownership and commitment to implement them. This is why ASEAN has endured, despite our vastly different political system, economy, and cultures. Consensus is not a weakness. It is an ASEAN greatest strength. Article 2E of the Charter enshrines non-interference in each country's internal affairs, and the consensus is the safeguard that protects this principle. So I ask, what good is a quick decision if the smaller nation reject it? What good is efficiency if it divides us? Revising the Charter to abandon consensus would erode trust and the means sovereign equality and threaten the very unity that defines our ASEAN. For this reason, and backed by the very text of the ASEAN Charter, we on the opposition of family stand the Charter must not be revised, and we should add an additional protocol like Geneva Convention. Thank you.
Next, I welcome the government with the first speaker of the government team to present your argument.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and honorable chair, the opposition claims that consensus leads to unity, and it is the strength of ASEAN that prevents smaller nations from being overruled. However, is this truly the case? Most consensus-based decisions in ASEAN not only lead to watered down, but also non-binding decisions. As such, I will now move on to my point. My point being that consensus is paralysis. The opposition themselves acknowledge that consensus is a slow process. Slow in this case is not acceptable, especially in the case of international relations issues which affect the lives of millions or even hundreds of millions. The core of ASEAN's issues lie in its consensus-making principle. It was created to protect unity. However, in practice, as I have previously stated, it provides for watered down and non-binding commitments. Article 20 does provide that ASEAN should make decisions on the principle of consensus and consultation. However, in crises which require action, timely action, the Charter is silent and provides for one nation to stall the entire process, such as in the Myanmar situation, where after the 2021 coup, the 5-point consensus was proposed and it was entirely ignored. Myanmar now exists in a humanitarian crisis where 1.5 million people are displaced, regional instability in ASEAN, and resulted in the loss of ASEAN's credibility on the international stage. Therefore, we can see that consensus has not preserved unity, but it has enabled inaction and corruption. Therefore, the government proposes an alternative using the model of the EU, specifically the one proposed in the EU Lisbon Treaty. The solution being in the form of a qualified majority vote. When applied to ASEAN, this will be a 70% or 7 out of 10 voting formula, where this formula allows for the upholding of ASEAN's credibility and centrality while maintaining efficiency and adaptability in its decision-making. Therefore, the government proposes in support of the motion that ASEAN's Charter should be revised in order to A, ensure equitable digital rights throughout the region, B, create operational and effective institutions, and C, adopt an efficient and adaptable decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from the opposition group, the first speaker of the opposition team, to present your point.
Good afternoon, honorable panel, ladies and gentlemen. ASEAN's strength has never been about maximalism on paper. It has always been a quiet, workable consensus that keeps the very 10 countries that have different culture, ethnicity together for so long. Before we move on to our final argument, we would like to start with the rebuttal to the side of the government. the government said consensus is low. Consensus, we need a stricter rule in the charter to make country implement the decision sent out by the ASEAN. And they also say that changing the charter will bring unity. But here is our answer from our side of the house. Changing the charter will bring basic issues like sovereignty, voting, which leading to long negotiation and possible deadlock. Furthermore, specific protocols, just like we proposed, can solve problem now without breaking up the group unity that build on mutual trust of non-interference and equal voting right before the 10 countries. Now, moving back to our final argument, our final argument settle on the very basis that we live in a diverse region. Consensus first deliver plausible and durable results rather than a faster step like proposed by the government side. The government keeps saying that revising the charter, it sounds tidy, but in practice, it keep bringing up the first principle that we having right now is the sovereignty, the non-interference, and the decision-making rule. This is not a technical edit to the charter. It is a geopolitical stress test that invite veto, that invite leakage, that invite domestic polarization among the 10 countries. And where we argue over karma, crisis will not wait for our to resolve. That is why even if one capital city say no, we will get a split ASEAN, some moving, others stuck, still in a stalemate on the amendment of revision proposed by the government. But we are right now not in the worst system, which is imperfect. Our system today is imperfect but workable system. And furthermore, if we hardwire the emergency power that was proposed by the government, we will step right into, again, if one state feels that they are cornered, they will just ignore them. That will then lead to a breach of cynicism and non-compliance. Therefore, we urge that please don't gamble the unity of our group on the unpredictable rewrite of the charter. Choose unity over uncertainty, action over stalemate, and realism over rhetoric. Thank you. Therefore, we proud to propose.
Now, I kindly invite the member of the opposition team to do the reply speech.
Testing. Okay. I think both teams want to uphold human rights, and that is admirable. However, the important question then is which side feasibly gets the goal of upholding human rights better. In my reply speech, I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to point out the important clashes, and second, I'm going to weigh and prove to you how oppositions should take this win. Those three main clashes that I'm going to discuss is first on feasibility, second on the idea of modernization, and third on defending the principles of the ASEAN way. So with that stated then, let's first talk about the feasibility, which I point out that government side did not really engage with. So first, we understand the need for change, right? However, GovWorld is very idealistic. In order for their change to happen, the revision to happen, member states need to agree for it to happen in the first place. All their words and promises are simply just promises if the charter can't be revised. And coming from leader of opposition, we gave multiple mechanisms on the reasons why the revision is less likely to be feasible. And we were even charitable with this, that even in the case that the revisions were accepted, it's at the end of the day, it would still hurt people on the ground. But aside from that, they also highlighted the issue about the lives of people and the suffering of the people on the ground while we still talk about this. At the end of the day, we still engage because due to the diverse interests and cultures of ASEAN, to let go of the consensus and the non-interference may exacerbate harms. Government side likes to promote the idea of upholding human rights, of taking actions, but in cases or in states wherein there are certain human rights abuses, where there are certain things that are going on that are quite negative, the leaders in these states might have their power get challenged, and this can trickle down to affecting the people on the ground. Because power is challenged in multiple fronts, specifically in these states which are more dangerous, what happens then is that the people on the ground have a high likelihood to also suffer, and this also takes down the point of government of how they highlight the importance of promoting human rights, but at the same time, immediate action can also hurt the people. But second, on modernization, we already told you that opposition side co-opts the benefits coming from government, because at the end of the day, we also have a solution mechanism coming from protocols. We don't necessarily have to revise the charter to account for the more modernized issues that we face in the year of 2025. I think we told you, coming from leader of opposition, that to focus on protocols and focus on addressing issues that are more modern is definitely more feasible than revising a charter that everyone has agreed on and everyone has agreed that is very important to them. So with that stated then, proud to oppose. Thank you.
Last but not least, I invite the government member to do the reply speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. As the government reply, I would like to address the points made by the opposition team. Firstly, about strengthening protocols outside of revising the charter. As mentioned, since 2008, there has been no revisions. All right, but what protocols are we even talking about? And has adjusting and amending those protocols even been efficient? As mentioned earlier, in Myanmar, there are over 1,000 scam dens using trafficked labor to scam those in other nations. While in Singapore, there has been rigorous education in avoiding scams. So that means there has actually been uneven national regulations. What protocols are being used by the ASEAN to ensure that it has been even? And even if there are protocols, these are only guidelines. There still needs to be charter level recognition. That's the whole point. In ensuring that there's charter level recognition, amending the charter to ensure that there are digital rights, this ensures that everyone will be protected, whether they are more developed or less developed. In terms of feasibility as well. In terms of feasibility, I'd also like to address the the consensus mechanism. Yes, I understand that the consensus mechanism works when everyone has to agree. But what's wrong with using a majority vote? As ASEAN has agreed on, there is mutual trust between all members of ASEAN. So using a majority vote at 70% would still assure that people's opinions are taken into agreement. However, this allows for some room of negotiable doubt. For example, in situations where there are crises and nations are at risk, for example, in the crisis going on in Myanmar right now, at the 70% vote, perhaps nations could actually have decisions on the ground to protect those on the lower end. Using a consensus mechanism just leads to more delays by protecting the government officials while people on the ground suffer. Feasibility is indeed a concern, but it doesn't seem to answer any genuine issues brought up by the government, which is about technological advancements and people suffering on the ground from crisis and political unrest. It seems to only stall decisions while keeping the hierarchy safe while those on the ground suffer. And in terms of modernization, what's wrong with revising the ASEAN Charter to include digital rights that protect citizens of ASEAN and ensure that they're on the same page in being aware of scams, deepfakes, and all kinds of technological harms? The world is a very confusing, difficult place now, and a lot of people are at risk. Not everybody, not all nations are at the same pace of technological developments, but so what? It does not mean that we leave them to suffer. While regions may develop at a different pace, even less developed nations will advance at some point. The Charter must already guarantee the rights that will protect people when they arrive at that stage. Otherwise, what we are building will be outdated and will fail them before they even get there. And thus, to conclude, in terms of feasibility, there's still many decisions that can be made and many revisions that can be included in the Charter, such as technological advancements, the rights to protect those in the digital age, as well as using a majority vote to ensure that some level of action can still be done within reasonable doubt to protect different nations, while still protecting different issues within the ASEAN world. And thus, I believe that the government still wins this argument, as digital rights deserve to be included in the Charter and people on the ground still deserve some level of protection through majority vote instead of consensus model, but those can be ignored. Thank you.
Thank you both teams for your remarkable arguments. We now proceed to the question and answer session with our adjudicators. Adjudicators, may I kindly ask you to keep each question under 15 seconds and directly, clearly define which side are you asking. Debaters, you have 45 seconds to prepare your answer and 2 minutes to answer your question.
Thank you, everyone. I'm from the General Department of ASEAN, MOFA, and I'm so impressed by all of you. You did a very good job, and the debate really captured the challenges that ASEAN is facing now. Therefore, I have 2 questions, one for the government team. If revising the charter creates division, how will you keep ASEAN united? And the second one goes to the opposition team. As you know that ASEAN is now facing new challenges such as non-traditional and traditional issues, such as particularly like climate change, pandemics. So how will ASEAN stay relevant without revising or updating? Thank you.
Hi, Miss. So that's a very good question. So to clarify your question, you talked about how to keep them united if revising, right? So over here, we talked about the regional interest to be prioritized. So we talked about the TAC model, right, that has never been convened before. So that's supposed to be the tool that we have here to use as a peaceful settlement that we can reach to, not only because we agreed that consensus is slow in this case. They even acknowledge that consensus is slow. So how do we make sure that we can actually go on the land and we can actually enforce action right then and there? It's not about taking actions that is very fast and going right away, but taking the consultation and making it an actual decision-making material. Because united in this case means that we can at least keep our, for example, economic integration. We know that ASEAN is the second biggest growing bloc right now next to the EU. So why can't we take over that and make sure that the interest should be protected here? If we implement the TAC that I mentioned earlier, it's not only relevant, accountable, and credible, but we can also maintain transparency here. Because the problem is, when we go on like disputes, it's like the humanitarian aid doesn't get to it because it's blocked. So how do we ensure that communication is going through, but we can actually go on the land so that we can dispute it? The charter does not account for something to be actionable here. It's just a foundation. So why can't we enforce the tools that are used to be implemented into the charter? I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Testing. I'd first like to say that's a wonderful question. And to clarify or to answer that question, I'd like to point out how the ASEAN Charter sets foundations for the protocols of ASEAN right now to address modern issues, right? So when the Charter says member states should work hand in hand to address like issues in the future or issues that are present, it can be interpreted timelessly to also cover more modern issues from today. This includes the issue brought upon earlier on the issue of climate change, of AI, etc. This is the reasons why we have initiatives in ASEAN right now, even if regarding these modern issues, even if it's not necessarily found in our charter. Therefore, I think it's quite redundant for government to say that we should be implementing these modern issues in the charter when, if we look at the charter, it provides foundations and it provides the foundations and proper interpretations for that make way for protocols that address modern issues that arise now or even in the future. So I think if we consider the things that we said earlier regarding the issue of feasibility and the issue of other member states possibly not being in agreement with each other, I think it's just easier to just say, if there are more modern issues, we should just address the protocols rather than shifting and revising the ASEAN Charter, which I think is already doing its job well. It sets a proper foundation for the ASEAN way for all our member states. Thank you.
So, this is a question for both, either way. How does the revision of the Charter or the protocol provide practical enforcement of the protection of the digital rights within ASEAN state members for non-compliance?
Thank you for that question. Please allow me to answer. So in regards to revising the Charter, in terms of practical protection of digital rights with non-compliance, the whole point of revising the Charter is to protect against non-compliance. Because as mentioned before, the rights that we wish to involve in the Charter is again the right to privacy and data protection, equitable digital access, and the protection from harmful automated systems. Therefore, by revising these rights within the Charter, we allow for genuine commitments, not just guidelines, to ensure the protection of all citizens against digital harms. In terms of what the opposition has said, they said amending protocols, for example, but it's the same mechanism as revising the Charter, just on a lower level. The reality of the fact is that by revising a protocol, you're still changing some level of mechanism or way, but why not bring up to the highest level possible and ensure that there are genuine commitments, not just certain guidelines. So by bringing up and revising the Charter, it means that all ASEAN members will have to follow these commitments and ensure the safety of their citizens in terms of the digital world. And thus, this ensures that all citizens will be protected from non-compliance in terms of the digital risks. And by revising the Charter, it allows for people to keep up with the modern world and stay protected in this modern life, therefore allowing for modernization. Changing the protocol or changing the Charter, it's just a lower level versus a high level. Why not go to the highest level and ensure that all citizens are protected? And yes, I understand the consensus model, but what ASEAN member does not want their citizens to be protected against the digital harms that are affecting our world? It seems like a very feasible way to bring changes about. So by changing protocol or revising the Charter, I believe that revising the Charter to add in these new rights is not something that's unheard of or not feasible. And thus, by having new digital rights that are strictly written in our Charter, this ensures the protections against non-compliance and other risks that people may face in the digital world. Therefore, this brings me to my conclusion. Revising the Charter is the best way to ensure the protection from non-compliance in terms of digital issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your wonderful question. So, our side of the House proposed that we add protocol to not revise the foundational structure that ASEAN Charter has been laid. So, adding protocol means to clarify the specific article that lay out in the Charter. So, to clarify that for digital law, we can add new protocol to complementary to the ASEAN Charter regarding what ASEAN should do, what ASEAN countries should do to enforce the protocol and enhance its digital law protection across the region. And second, regarding the enforcement mechanism, Article 20, subparagraph 1 and subparagraph 2 has laid out the foundation of enforcement already. So the first up is the consensus. 10 countries need to reach an agreement, but Article 20, subparagraph 2 allow, if consensus not reached, the summit can find other method for the enforcement, other method to give it to the chair for the enforcement. So, as we reiterated, please use the existing framework and not tear down the foundation that have united us for so long and keep this diverse region together in unity. Because in the Charter, it gives enough leg room, it gives enough wiggle room for our policy, for the ASEAN Summit leader to try to enforce, like the one market and the new digital cooperation between ASEAN across the country, and we can see the bilateral between ASEAN, between countries using ASEAN framework, just across border payment, which is related to digital literacy as well. And this our side of the house is to not tear down the foundation, but to improve on it. Thank you.
One last question. The question for the government: how do you convince citizens, ASEAN people, that ASEAN can become more credible and effective updating this charter for government. And then in addition for the opposition is revisaed have not revised the charter. So how can citizens still be convinced that this organization is still credible?
Could you repeat the question for the government side?
How do you convince the public, the citizens, ASEAN people, that ASEAN can become more credible and effective by updating its charter and vice versa to the opposition? How do you convince the ASEAN people? Thank you.
Your Excellency, distinguished guests, thank you for your insightful question. In regards to convincing ASEAN citizens that ASEAN will become more credible by updating the Charter, we must all acknowledge that all ASEAN citizens don't like the fact that ASEAN is more or less a talk show. The consensus model in decision making has paralyzed ASEAN and has not effectively addressed the issues inside of the region. The opposition continuously raises that ASEAN has a strong foundation and that it has done good work. But what good work has been done when Myanmar has been bleeding for the last 4 years? Indonesia is in a political crisis, not to mention the border clash between our country and Thailand. Now, in regards to raising credibility, a revision to the consensus framework to a qualified majority like the EU, the most powerful supranational organization on the planet, if we follow their lead, a step that has already been proven to work, why should we not do so? As such, and to sum up my point, in order to convince ASEAN citizens that ASEAN will become more credible by updating the Charter, we must first make sure what is it that we are revising. In this case, the government is proposing that we should revise the Charter in order to modernize it, to reflect the realities of the modern day, and to not get rid of, but change the consensus framework to a more efficient and more adaptable decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, adjudicator, for your wonderful questions. And thank you, debater, for your wonderful answer as well. Now, we will invite questions from the audience. Please keep your question brief. I kindly request to keep the question under 15 seconds. Sorry. Please proceed.
Testing. Okay. To answer the question on how can citizens of different member states be convinced that ASEAN is still effective and credible through protocol changes, before I tackle that question specifically, I think it's important to note that sovereignty is very important to different citizens of different member states, because citizens care about their own diverse issues, and countries or member states should still protect them. And that's why when we don't revise like the ASEAN Charter, which is rooted in like ASEAN way, where there's the importance of consensus, where there's the importance of like non-interference, like citizens of member states are relieved in the fact that their interests are still being prioritized even though there's still cooperation. But regarding on how citizens can be convinced that ASEAN is still effective and credible through the protocol changes, is that protocol changes still push the credibility of ASEAN, because the fact that ASEAN collaborates with each other, like different member states of ASEAN collaborates with each other, there's different solutions and researches and like initiatives, proves that change is happening. And the fact that there are still at the very end of the day some humanitarian aid to address like humanitarian issues in ASEAN proves that through these protocol changes, through the constant improvements of these protocols without the necessary need of the revision of the ASEAN Charter, it tells the citizens of ASEAN member states that change can still accrue through the protocol changes, that there is something to be done, that there is something being done regarding these more modern issues, while at the same time, like the interests of different citizens of the different member states are still being prioritized. Thank you.
First of all, apologies for getting confused. And thank you for your wonderful answer. Now I'm going to invite the audience to ask questions under 15 seconds.
Thank you very much. Let me introduce myself first. I am Deputy Director General from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Today I noted that congratulations to both teams. All of you assured that your excellent performance regarding the debate at this session. So I have a very short question, in particular to the government side.
Assume that Myanmar may be object against revive the ASEAN Charters. So that's what are your plans? What is your modality or strategy to pursue Myanmar to set the ASEAN Charter revised by your race, your team race, while maintaining the values of the bloc? That's for my simple question. And then for the opposition group, Myanmar, what is your plan and modalities maintaining to Myanmar? Myanmar to follow your rights of your stand, your position to follow the ASEAN Charters and also the other issue. That's my question for the opposition side. Thank you very much.
Today, I would like to invite you to answer the questions. The question was posed earlier by our audience. I want to invite you to answer the question in time for preparing this up.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your wonderful question. So our approach to convince Myanmar in adopting the new protocol is simple. The new protocol will be consultation among the 10 countries and will be taken into consideration the situation of Myanmar, the unique situation of each country. That is what build ASEAN Charter. That is what ASEAN Charter lay out and give us a guideline to try and get things done as a unity, as a bloc of group, to give our voice more power among other states. So the new protocol will be taken into consideration of Myanmar, and Myanmar will have the power to, pursuant to international law, protocol is to ratify the protocol or not. It does not automatically impose its bindingness on Myanmar. It's up to Myanmar to ratify, and it seems that it is upon its interest to ratify such protocol. And we deem that upon consultation among the 10 members, and we deem that this protocol that proposed that will tackle situation across the region will be accepted by all. Thank you.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for the wonderful question. So to clarify your question again, you asked about assuming that Myanmar against the revision, what would be the strategy? Yes. So first, we would love to ask, why are you against it? What is the particular issue here before we can get to a strategy, right? Because obviously, when you're against something, there could be different factors, right? So we have to address that first. The thing is, it's not about a strong nation, weak nation kind of issue, a human rights issue, sir. Because the case that's going on needs action. The problem with the charter as it is that it's non-binding. There is no push to actually take decision-making. If there is no decision-making, how can we actually implement an action to solve an issue that's already there? The lack of urgency is the problem here. Everyone knows it's urgent, but why is there nothing being done to actually push something? So the fact that it's non-binding is not just the issue, but also economic integration can't proceed without a peaceful settlement, right? So Myanmar already lost about $1.5 billion in FDI around 2021. How much more are we willing to lose? Around 1.5 million refugees who had to be displaced from their home. How much more are we willing to lose if we don't take an action? That's why the revision that we propose here is so that not only are we talking about the urgency and also decision making in this case, but so that we can also not just have something that's slow and consensus-based agreement, but to address the urgencies that are going on in our contemporary world. I hope that answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debater, for your answers. We extend our gratitude to both teams of their thoughtful debates on this significant issue. I now invite the government team and the opposition team to the center of the stage to exchange a handshake.